All right, so it's all about recordings, speaking of which. So by default, before this feature came out, it was kept forever, right? And so you can deal with it manually, but that takes up a lot of space, especially if you're recording a lot of meetings, or if you have, as far as the way you have your meeting set up, you're literally having it auto record all the time. And you don't necessarily need to always keep that all the time, right? So it's very important to be able to maybe adjust or remove them after a certain amount of time, or the end user has to do something with it. That's really the basis for this particular feature change, right? So when it came out, it's default to 60 days, right? So 60 days after this meeting has happened, then it will automatically delete, right? And this is within SharePoint or OneDrive, doesn't matter where it happens to be. So it's important to keep this in mind, that if you want that to be something different, right, you have this ability as an admin to go in here and change that expiration date. And you can set the maximum of 273 years. Who cares, right? That's possible. I don't know if anybody would want to do that, but that's possible. What will happen is this continues to go up. So it's already starting to go GA, which means not everybody has it right now. This was back in November it started. I should say in January. Originally it was in November. They pushed it to January. It finally started releasing now. It's going through mid-February. So it's important to keep in mind is even though it's out or it's releasing, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it right away. So keep that in mind. All right, and I think we have somebody that's muted. Let's see if I can find it. You got it, Michelle? Awesome. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, the other one I thought, and Michelle and I were online actually talking about this with another scenario that had come up, and this is actually a pretty big deal. I mentioned it last week or last month in our meeting that it was coming. It's available now, but it's important to understand that there is ability to be able to now do audience targeting with Dynamic Azure AD groups. Dynamic Azure AD groups is part of the license, the premium license, the Azure AD, but it gives you this capability to be able to say, these parameters, I want to be able to have an Azure Active Directory group that dynamically changes as people change roles or as people leave the organization, or based off whatever criteria you have in there, you have this ability to be able to add and remove users. Well, now, up until then, you could only do SharePoint groups or 365 groups, and that's it. And those were static groups unless manually changing those. Now this gives us that capability of having a true dynamic scenario for our end users as they're moving around. So again, another big one that's going to come through. All right, so let's hit some of the other ones that are happening. And we go through, and most of the time we'll hit a majority of this is going to be across M365. Sometimes features are happening with different products. For instance, this time we actually have one on bookings, which we had a session on what bookings was not that long ago. And it just depends upon what's happening. So the first one, and again, I'm calling this out as much as possible. Some things are in public preview versus being actually rolled out, right? So public preview means that if your tenant, if you have some users within your tenant that's enrolled in the public preview capability, then they may have access to this, right? So, or you may opt in for your organization to be able to do public preview. Understand that that's still moving to general availability, and that's coming out. So right now, public preview for this particular one, MS Info Protection, new roles and new groups. This is happening here early January to early February, and especially around the information protection side of things, these are very needed. Being able to segment who can do what from an admin to an analyst to an investigator to a reader is very important on the compliance side, right? So information protection. They also have associated groups around that, right? So you can have an information protection, which is full control over everything within that compliance information protection center. So keep that in mind, something to look forward to and something to adjust, especially from your administrative side of things. All right, Office Web and SharePoint, create and manage your verticals within Microsoft Search. So a very long time ago on the SharePoint side of things, we really had the capability of doing some customizations when it comes to SharePoint and creating our own verticals. This is now that evolution of what Microsoft Search is and Office 365 and giving us a lot of those capabilities we had in the past, right? So this rollout, this late December, it's already started, right, to late January. So again, you may not have gotten it yet, but you have this capability now to be able to create and modify the out of the box. You can create new ones if you want to, but you can modify the out of the box search verticals that are already in there. So you don't have to just stick with the ones that are there. You can modify those if you want something a little bit different, right? But it's all under Search and Intelligence Admin Center found in the Office 365 Admin Center. If you are going to make some of those changes, just make sure those people who are responsible for those verticals and setting those up understand this change is going to happen. All right, another SharePoint one. This is one specifically around the My Feed web part, which is part of SharePoint Online. And this is rolling out between, in a couple of weeks here, all the way to the end of the year. I should say end of the January. And basically they're just new additional components that are going to pop into the My Feed web part. And that My Feed web part has a lot of different pieces to it. What's getting added is the suggested tasks. So if you have a task, and this is all based off of email. So understand this is all AI driven content. So if in there you said, I will work on X, Y, and Z, it'll actually pop up and say, hey, did you mean to do, you want a task for this? Do you want me to add it to do? Or do you want to say happy birthday to Charlotte? Now this is those types of things. Some of this information is if you've opted in to linking your account to LinkedIn, right? So that you can see that information. But that's one of the predecessors you have to have is that LinkedIn capability. Things like meetings out of routine. If this is a one-off, and if it's a out of your normal work period, make a new, suggestion for a new time. Those types of things are going to be popping up into this My Feed web part in SharePoint, right? Connected to your Outlook and what's happening there. Microsoft List Board View. I brought this one in there because it was interesting just because the fact is now, this is really starting to look like, the Kanban boards or even Planner to a certain extent, but you can do it with your list content that you already have in there. Customize fields, all of that. So you have this ability to be able to, on the card itself, the information that's in those boxes, you have the ability to say what columns that you want to be able to display within that. You may not have everything, but in this particular view, you want to be able to say, I want these cards and I want this information in there. And you can drag and drop and organize it however you need to. So a manual capability. So very, very similar to some of the things we've seen like Kanban boards or even what we're now doing in some of the planner side of things, but you can now do it with the custom or your Microsoft list, right? That's happening mid-January, so pretty soon to early February, so look for that. All right, I do have a Viva one, enabling delay delivery plan in Outlook, and this is in preview. Rollout here for preview is for February to mid-February, and then standard, this is coming out here soon after that, for mid-February to late February. So basically what it is if you're doing an email and happens to be 2 or 3 of the people that are in the email, that's not their normal working hours, it's going to understand that and say, hey, do you want to do what's called a delayed delivery? And the thing about it is if you get emails after hours, and you happen to be looking at your email, you want to try to respond to it. You have to pull yourself back, but by doing something like this, it says, hey, by the way, that's out of their work schedule. What do you think about maybe doing it tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., right? And making those types of suggestions. Again, this is AI-driven, pulling that necessary information in to be able to make those decisions. And understand, though, You do have to have that My Analytics service plan with E5 licensing, so it's the higher level. But I mean, this is something that's going to be beneficial for those people who are doing a lot of emails and want to get that information out, but they want to be timely on it, right? They want to get an immediate reaction from somebody. All right, bookings. As I mentioned, there was actually one on bookings. So this one is Q View, which is a different view inside the Teams booking app. Now, this is the app. So this is not necessarily, you go to Bookings Web and you go into the Bookings Web look, right? This is when you bring bookings into Teams as an app. You're going to now have another tab in there called Q View. This is rolling out here, public preview, should be going already out now. Standard mid-January to late January. And basically, it's going to give you a consolidated look of all bookings for your organization if you're utilizing it for that. And then you can actually join meetings from there. You can send an SMS, you can send an email, you can edit, right? You can do all those things that you would normally do individually, but you can see that holistically. Right? You can even enable self-service for somebody else to be able to handle or take over if need to be, if I have to be out and I'm managing those things for my organization. But again, it's specifically the Teams app inside the Teams client that this is focused on and not in the web version of it. All right, big update now coming up with Stream, and this has been talked about in the past. This is coming. Finally, we're now starting to get closer to actually seeing it. Targeted release early March to end of April. Standard release early April to end of April. And basically what it allows us to be able to do is the files, the transcript files and the caption files specifically. Sometimes they're not accurate, right? So if we want to be able to go in there and make a change to that, you have that ability to be able to upload, download, and delete captions if you need to. It is using a WebVTT file format, which is standard for these types of things. If you want to modify any of those things, you would need to have an app that actually reads that file format, make that change, save it, and then upload it back into the meeting. This also works, and they're also doing this feature with Teams live event transcripts. So if you're doing live events, you have this capability to be able to do it. This is, again, if it's inside, do I have it in OneDrive or do you have it in SharePoint and it's shared there? You have to have edit permissions to be able to make these changes. View people are, if you have view permissions, you'd be able to display the transcript. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make any changes, but you have to have at least the ability to edit that video to be able to get at these features. And once you are able to access it, then you can make those changes. We have a Yammer one that just came out not too long ago, and this is cross geo external specifically for organizations that are working with the European Union. I know not everybody is doing that, but I know European Union always has these stipulations when it comes to data. And now finally the capability of being able to say, hey, I want to have a EU user in a United States Yammer network. I can now do that, and I don't have to have two different, Yammer groups to be able to handle that. So it allows me to be able to set that up. As an admin, you have this capability of going in there and saying, I want to be able to approve everybody that comes from an external network type scenario. I want to be able to say yay or nay on that. That is something you can enable. And then be able to not allow somebody from the union, if that's something that you want to be able to do, right? But otherwise, this is going to be available here in mid-March to late, or I should say mid-February to late March. Jumping on the team side, there always seems to be a few things on the team side that we need to talk about. On the team side, this one's a very, from a user voice, this is huge. There's a lot of people that were talking about, hey, I don't want to see myself in the meeting all the time. Like right now, I'm looking at the Teams meeting and I can see myself gesturing and I can talking, but with this feature, I will have the ability to hide that so it's not distracting from me. Notice the rollout standard, January to early February, GCC late January to end of February, GCCH mid-February to end of March, and then DoD February to mid-March. Again, this is that me box there, right? And I want to be able to hide myself. And it just makes it a little bit easier for people to be able to, interact and do things without having to see that. Now, when you do hide it, it actually gives you a little indication that, by the way, you hid your video. You're not seeing it, but it's on, right? So those types of things will help, especially for those people who are presenting and don't necessarily need to see themselves speak, right? Another one is, again, Teams specific, automatically detect music. Again, notice this is coming out standard from late January to mid-February. GCC, GCCH, and DoD are a little later after that. This is utilizing that same feature, the noise suppression feature that has been out for a little while. It's using the machine language to be able to identify that noise and do something with it. It's the exact same engine behind the scene, but now it's really looking at, hey, music has been detected. Do we need to suppress that? So say, for instance, you're at a coffee shop and you want to be able, you don't want to hear, or somebody's at a coffee shop, you don't want to be able to hear that. It can suppress that noise. That's the capability of doing it, or we want it to come through. As an example, like at a music lesson, right? So again, update that knowledge. You'll notice this bar will come across, that high fidelity mode bar will come across. And then once it's enabled, you'll see that little music sign inside Teams meeting showing that it's the high fidelity mode has been enabled. All right, a couple on, we actually have one on Teams rooms. And if you are utilizing Microsoft Teams rooms, the Windows version, this is something that Microsoft, we've been kind of talking about, is like the next iteration of the conference room experience with Microsoft Teams rooms. This is coming here late January to late February, and basically it's a new layout that's going to be available inside the Microsoft Teams for Windows. If you go to the display, you'll be able to choose the layout, and it's called Front Row. And basically the idea is that in a hybrid scenario, when you have people that are in the office in the conference room and you have those that are working at home, it'll be more at eye level, right? So if you have that display that's sitting there with the people, the remote people being remote, they're going to be farther on the bottom, which is more in eye level and more of a way to be able to connect with those people. Experience. So a couple things about that. This can be set for default for that particular room. If you have a single display, it'll show 4 participants across that. If you have a multiple displays, 2 displays, you'll see 9 going across the bottom. And it can fit rooms from 16 to 9 display, or 21 to 9 is even optimal as well. But big changes coming on the MTR side of things, or the Microsoft Teams room. But again, it's Microsoft Teams room for Windows. This is not available for Android as of yet. Another one is now a lot of people have complained about the fact that I want to be able to just mute all notifications. Notifications like chats and all that kind of stuff that pop up during the meeting can be distracting. So here, this mute notifications during meetings between early February to mid-March is starting to happen. And you can do it a couple different ways. You can disable on in your particular version of Teams, right? Your client, you can go into the profile picture, global settings, notifications, and meetings, and adjust it from there. Otherwise, if you go into the meeting settings, right, the ... that gives you the ability to not allow notifications. Again, making it easier to focus on the meeting and not get distracted from everything else that happens to be going on. Some quick mentions. Again, there's always things happening in here. Out of this, there's a couple ones I wanted to really point out. The connected templates, I think, is going to be big for you guys. Think about this. If I build a Microsoft Teams site, I get the generic out-of-the-box SharePoint site. Same thing. If I have a SharePoint site, I can't really deal anything or do anything from a Teams side of things. What this is basically saying is now these are going to be connected. And if I say I want to create a Teams site and I want to make a planning type team site or a PM type project type clean team site, then I want to have these particular channels. I can also say that, hey, this SharePoint site, which is a project SharePoint site with this project content information on the home page, these lists, these libraries, I now can have a connected experience across Teams and SharePoint. Something I think has been coming a long time and a lot of people have been asking for. Cortana push to talk, that icon's changing, so not a big thing, just people may freak out when things change. And this is for MTR consoles. Microsoft Editor. I don't know how many of you guys are using Microsoft Editor for spell check and grammar, but it's coming to SharePoint pages. So when you're in a SharePoint page, you don't have to rely on the browser to be able to check your, how you can sometimes set that up to be able to have an extension to be able to check your grammar or check your spelling. Automatically, it's going to happen on the pages. You'll start seeing the red lines and the blue lines to be able to say, hey, here's a grammar issue, or here's a spelling issue. Meet Now, which is another thing for Microsoft Teams Windows, Microsoft Teams Rooms for Windows. This is the Meet Now capability is really that ad hoc, and it's becoming more upfront on the homepage where you can still do dialing to, bring people in, but you start the meeting there to make an ad hoc, and then you add participants, whether they be from the directory or a phone number. And then just a little bit of change in the app's native permissions, something to think about that you need to look at. But it is, if you're using web version of Teams, the users are going to have to provide permissions for apps to access, right? So that'd be camera, microphone, and location. Very similar to what we see in mobile devices. It's now going to start happening more to the Teams app in the browser. Some updates, and anytime you see something that's on here, this means that a lot of times the timeline has been pushed, right? So keep that in mind, and I try to kind of call out those changes as much as possible. So again, you'll have access to this. There's a lot of information in here, but just a couple of high-end ones like the isolated audio for NDI and hardware out. That is the capability of doing audio stream only for NDI, which is being able to separate out all the audio from all the participants. And then you can use another tool like OBS or other tools to be able to, individually deal with that audio stream. Press to mute, which got moved, and basically the ability to hold the control and space key down to unmute and then release that, and that will mute you again. Background effects for web is a big one. The markup ink for edit, that is the capability of being able to mark up a picture that's stored within OneDrive or SharePoint, and you can draw on it, you can highlight things. So some of those are the big ones that are coming up. Admin actions, again, if you're not sick and tired of people telling you IE11 is going away, get there, get it taken care of, come up with an alternative. I also threw in the SharePoint on-premises cumulative updates. If you guys still have on-prem SharePoint, which some people do, there was a release in December, and these are updates for 2019, 2016, and 2013. Yes, there are still some organizations that have 2013. I'm not going to name them, but they're still there. So make sure you get those cumulative updates out there. And then last but not least, this came out end of December. I thought it was really funny, especially those guys who are SharePoint people. I think it's one of those things that back in the old days, it was all about subsites. In the modern way of doing things, not anymore, right? So please take a look at that. It's a PDF, it's a download, it's a good read. You'll have a little chuckle. All right, I think that's it, Michelle.
All right, sounds good. I know there's a question I'm not going to get to quite yet until I am able to dig, but is connected templates also coming to GCC in January, February? I know if you can.
Michelle, you got muted all of a sudden.
Okay, somebody muted me. You didn't like what I was saying. No, is the templates, connected templates, going to be on the roadmap for GCC in the same time period? Go ahead and Don, take a look if you wouldn't mind. But what I wanted to also share is that the numbers that we share with you, where it says MC and then it has a number after, that's a way, it's called message center, is the prefix. You can grab that, go out to your message center, put that in there, and it'll go directly to that item.
Yep.
As well as a lot of times when you open that up in the message center, we have a correlating roadmap number. So you can go ahead and click on the link inside the message center to get more on those dates. A lot of times though, for any questions related to GCC, I tend to narrow down my filter in the roadmap and just look at GCC and then see if that item's in there. And that's a surefire way of finding out if that is truly going to be a part of that same time period. So anyway, that's what I like to do. All right, let's go ahead and move. Thanks, Don, for all of that information. That was a lot. I'm going to even have to like filter and sift through it all. Let's go ahead and move into our January user group virtual meeting topics. I'm going to first talk about charity and what we're doing in that space, and then our survey results, as well as what's coming for the next couple topics. So for our charity this month, you know, we've been donating, I think we're up to almost $4,000 since we've gone virtual to different local charities in the Twin Cities. And this was a response from our board wanting to do something more than provide just great technology information to everyone in the community, but also to do community giving. And this month we have chosen Second Harvest Heartland. We have a list of charities that we cycle through every single month. We'll be adding more, so you'll probably be seeing some newer ones that we've voted on the board to be able to just provide more community giving. From what our sponsors are able to give to us, we just go ahead and give that right back to the community. So that is going to be something we do every month, and we'll continue to do as long as we can. So really proud to be able to do that. The next one is all around Amazon gift cards. We purchased 2 of them for every user group meeting. And what we do with them is, as you fill out the survey, at the end of each meeting, we go ahead, put all the names of everyone who completed the surveys through a randomizer machine, and it's very magical. And then we draw numbers and pull from the hat and go ahead and pick 2 people who fill out the survey and then send them over the Amazon gift cards. I would like to just note that sometimes those gift cards may go to your spam account. That's a part of email filtering. And so hopefully everyone on the call knows that you need to look in your spam in case you did not get it in your regular focused mailbox. So happy to do that and continue to give back to everyone here with the survey results that you're able to, you know, give to us, so we can learn more on how we can improve, be better, and everything else. So with that, let's go ahead and get Shari up. Shari's going to go first. She's going to talk about everything new and cool in Planner. I think at the top of the hour, I had said, hey, if you're not syncing your message center announcements to Planner, hopefully you guys are doing that. If you're not, you're going to learn about Planner today. And if you're not an admin and you can't even get into the message center, there is a message center reader role. So you could go ahead and ask for that to your admin and then get those different message center announcements syncing back to Planner. After Shari, I'm going to go ahead and take over on the end-to-end deployment of Viva Connections. I'm going to actually walk through every single step, give you some roadmap items and all kinds of greatness in the connection space. So with that, Shari, are you available to join?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yay! All right. Well, you just take it away.
We're twinning today.
Yes. Oh,
Wearing
great.
my jacket. Welcome, everyone.
Fantastic. Well, have fun.
Thanks. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Thank you, Michelle, and the board for having me back. I always love speaking for this group, and mainly because every time I join, I learn something new, and the message center updates are really amazing to have always. For those of you that don't have access to those, it can be a little frustrating because you don't know what's going there, but everybody has access to the roadmap, and a lot of what I'm going to be sharing today is from that roadmap. I'll be sharing my deck with the group, and in the deck I have each one of my topics, but I won't necessarily go, I do a demo. I prefer demo versus doing the presentations, but if you want to have the deck later, that'll be accessible to you. Okay. All righty. So what's new and what's cool in Microsoft Planner? Would love to know how many of you are actually using Microsoft Planner right now? What are you using it for? Go ahead and put it in the chat for me. Anybody want to share? Can they chat?
They can come off mute, they can chat, they can do whatever they like.
Okay, just double checking if the guest access thing sometimes a little wonky. All right, so project management, simple tasks, assigning tasks, looks like a lot of project planning, a lot of project management. Okay, great. The intent of Planner is that it is supposed to be coordinating tasks with multiple people or groups of people. So hopefully that's where you're able to utilize that. As you're answering that question, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Shari Oswald. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, Microsoft Office Specialist Master, and a customer immersion experience partner. I have all kinds of social out there. They call me Shortcut Shari. It became a thing. It started as a joke, became a thing. So feel free to check out my blog if you'd like to see that. And all the links for all of my social media are also there. I'll put them in the chat for you as well. And so feel free to connect with me if you're interested. You can also find my courses on LinkedIn Learning. I do 3 SharePoint courses on there now. Pluralsight has some of my content, and the Power Bytes Learning Portal, which I have a free gift for you all later if you're interested. All right, so my focus is I like to create passionate, energetic, and creative learning opportunities to solve business problems with technology and innovation. So every time I speak, every time I'm teaching, it's all about the people. I want them to have fun. I want them to be excited about the technology, and I want them to learn and grow in their skills. So hopefully that's my objective today, and I hope I meet that with you as well. All right, I have a link there for my LinkedIn Learning if you would like a free trial. It's bit.ly/LIL for LinkedIn Learning and Shortcut Shari. Those are case sensitive. All right, my company is Power Up Learning, and we don't just train, we empower people, and we have a collection of consultants, facilitators, authors, speakers, and instructors, all the above. So if you're interested, let me know, and we'll get you hooked up. And then finally, let's dive into Planner. What's new? There hasn't been a whole lot new in Planner for a while. I was hoping for some more. There are some promises that were made at Ignite that we haven't seen yet. So I'm going to give you some of the most recent updates. And I have a Tip Tuesday that I do every single Tuesday. And if I have a link for that, this is actually one that I did a video for in my YouTube channel. And again, we'll provide those for you in the deck. But you can also go out to my channel and check it out as well. This came from the Microsoft roadmap, and it's creating tasks from Microsoft Teams. And then I'm going to show you the file recommendations that are available if you have file recommendations. And then moving tasks to any of your plans. So I'm going to show you that in a live environment. So these are the top, most recent things that involve Microsoft Planner. All right, so Planner. One of the cautions I always like to give people, especially if they haven't been using Planner yet, Planner is based on Office 365 groups. And the first time you access it, actually, you might see this little pop-up. I don't know why we can't just close it. There's no close button. But if you kind of go through the motions, eventually you get a little X. So sometimes you don't want to create a new plan. You just want to get to your stuff. But the first time you log in to Planner, you're going to see that little pop-up window. All right, so people get very excited about Planner. For me, I know when I first saw it, I'm like, open, open, open. I was so excited to get it in my tenant. But I realized very quickly that I made a big mess in my tenant because I created a bunch of planner boards for myself. And that isn't how any of this works. When you create a plan, you also create an Office 365 group, a SharePoint site, an email address, and a whole bunch of other things. So if I were to create a planner board called recruiting, I have now used up that name within Active Directory because it creates a group around that. So be very careful when you're creating your plans. They promised us at Ignite, that was one of the announcements, was that you could have personal plans with but it hasn't come through yet, and we haven't gotten any updates on it. It kind of went away. I think they were going to do the same thing they were doing with lists, where you have it in your personal OneDrive storage, but that hasn't materialized. So when you're creating a plan, understand you are creating a group, and you also using up the name that could be used for something else. Here's all the plans that I'm a part of. And so if I were to go back to any of my Microsoft Teams, let's go ahead and start there. And office.com. So we're going to show you how to mark a task in Teams for keeping track of stuff. This was a big deal for me because I use Outlook extensively, and creating tasks from emails is one of my favorite things and probably one of the best kept secrets of Outlook. My frustration with Teams is people would ask me to do things or things I needed to follow up, and I didn't necessarily have that opportunity to create a task. I'd have to do it manually in order to keep track of it. But it's kind of hidden. They've actually surfaced it one level up. If you click on the reactions bar and the ... you see more actions here, and you can create a task. So that's underneath there. If you, that's on that type of message. Otherwise, you're going to see it. It'll be in the first tier. So this, yesterday, the demo tenant that I recorded this in had it here. Now it's under the more actions. So you're either going to see the create task or create it here. And I'm still trying to figure out how to assign that to a plan. But that was one of the announcements that they made, that you could move your, or you could create a task from your Teams, but I'm still trying to figure out how they move it to Teams. So we're going to do a little bit more diving on that. I'm going to do a video on when I figure that out. So I figured I'd give you a heads up on that one. All right, the second one is file recommendations. And if you go into a plan, so I'm going to go into this logistics plan and pick one of my tasks. At the bottom, it'll take a second sometimes, and it'll give you some suggestions of attachments. I think this is really helpful because often we need to share our content. When you add an attachment and you from your computer and put it here, where did that file go? I think it's very confusing when, it could be coming from my OneDrive or something like that. It doesn't necessarily create a central place for those documents to be stored that's easily found. I think if you add these, remember all these plans are attached to a SharePoint site, which is, could be also a team as well. The documents that are there in that site surface up here and show as an option to make as an attachment. So I have a recruiting example that we're going to show later. Wouldn't it be nice if you could upload all of the resumes around the candidates that you're looking for or you're screening for a position, and being able to add their resume right to the card where we're going to interview them. So the suggested attachments I think are pretty cool. All right, and then moving tasks to any of your plans. Previously, I'm just going to go back to my Planner Hub and choose my little recruiting option. All right. Let's look under recommended. All right. For some reason, it was there and now it's not. Let's try and go back to the first page. My recruiting one is not there. Weird. Okay, it was there a second ago. All right, I'm just going to pick one here instead of trying to access those. So your plans, let's say Patty's travel. I'm working on logistics for an event, let's say. And now I need to let Patty know that I booked her flight or booked her travel. If I click on this item, you can move now a task. Previously, you could only move the task within that plan, or copy a task within that plan. Now we can move them across any of the plans, or any of the channels or the plans. So look at all of these. Here's those recruiting ones, not showing up on my dashboard. All right, so here's my recruiting one. I could put it there. I have Patty F logistics. So if I wanted to, once I've completed it and I just want to put it in hers, I can move it to that plan and then pick which bucket I want to put it in and then move that item. So now it's in her court. It's out of mine, it's in hers, which is really cool. I think this is helpful that when you're members of multiple plans, other people's might not be members of the plans you are, and you can move the tasks around to manage those. So moving between plans and assigning them to a bucket, I think is a big one. Anybody like those? Cool. Give me a thumbs up. All right. So what's cool in Microsoft Planner? Now, these are some of the, I think were obvious. So this is kind of like the in case you missed it. Some of these are new and some have been around for a while, but I'm going to show you a few and then we'll do the demo. Creating a second plan for a group. Before, every time you created a plan, it created another group. And again, that was very confusing and caused a lot of problems. So now we can create a second plan for a group that already exists. We can pin a plan. So if you are working with plans that often, as you build all of your plans into your Planner Hub, sometimes they get lost. So it's kind of nice to be able to pin those to the top so that you don't lose the ones you're working in most often. And then you can do some customizations in the labels. So let's go ahead and look at those three options. All right, so I'm going to create a plan for an existing group. Now, to me, best practice is to go to the team, find the channel that you want to add the plan for, and then add it from here. So click the plus to add the tab and select task by planner and to do. It's no longer the planner icon. And then you can create one and it automatically assigns it to this, this channel and this group. But if you're in the Planner Hub, you can do it from there as well. I'm going to go back to Planner, create a new plan now. Let's say we're looking for a new VP of Operations recruiting. Right, so this doesn't look like it, but it's actually a link. Add to an existing Microsoft 365 group. I wish they would make that a little more obvious because hovering, unless you hover over it, it doesn't look like a link. So I'm going to add it to a group. Maybe I'm going to add it to the leadership group and then create the plan. So now that planner board is available to anyone that's in the group, the leadership group. If I were to go out to Teams, go into the leadership group, then I can surface it on the tab, whichever tab makes sense. Okay. So depending on where you're working from, whether you're working from Teams or you're working from Planner, you can create that other plan. Now, if this is what I'm working on right now, I might want to pin that item to the top of my Planner Hub so I can ensure that I don't lose it. It's always readily available to me. There's a couple of ways to do that. You can right-click and pin it. You can click the little pin up here at the top in the Planner Hub. There's also a pin, either clicking the pin here or hit the little dot, dot, dot and let you pin it. So however it makes sense for you. After we're done with recruiting that VP of Operations, if I want to, I can unpin that item as well. So from VP of Operations, let's say we're done, I'm going to unpin that one and it'll drop back into my recent or all of the all plans that are available. Customizing your labels. This came up, probably, oh my goodness, it's been a while. I think it was back in spring last year, but this was a big deal. Being able to add labels to your tasks. All right, I'm just going to add one here. And look at my labels. There used to be 6, and they were red, blue, like not even the 8 crayon colors in the Crayola box, right? Now we have the 25 colors in the crayon box. And each planner board has its own set of labels. So this is really nice to be able to customize what you're looking for. So maybe as I'm recruiting, I'm going to say this yellow isn't just yellow. If you click it, you can edit the label. And so this is a first choice candidate. And let's say I'm going to add another one that's silver and say this is a second choice candidate. And I'm going to add one more for the bronze and call it the third choice candidate. Now, as I'm creating them, you notice it automatically adds it to there. So sometimes when I just pick any random task, add my labels, and then you can remove the ones that don't apply for that. So let's say this is going to be John Smith. And I'm going to attach his resume. This is in progress. And I'm going to start adding some buckets. So let's say we're going to do his review resume. Notice that there's already 16 members that are on this board because I created it for that group. So they automatically get the permissions that are there. And maybe I'm going to move John Smith over there. So that's the other secret, dragging and dropping to update your items. You can put them in there. Okay. So creating the labels that are useful to you. And again, there's labels for each of the planner boards. They'll have their own labels. Right, drag and drop to updates, my next one. So I just showed you that. You can drag and drop it from bucket to bucket, and most people know that. If you go up to the right-hand corner, though, you can do updates by changing the view. Let me go to a plan that's a little bit more built out. And if I group by bucket and change that to assign to, I can drag and drop and reassign items between the people. So this one is Adele, you know, I can assign this one over to Deborah. And if I change it to progress, these ones are completed. Let's say these ones are now in process and this one's been completed just by dragging and dropping. It's kind of nice when you have multiple items. And I'm going to show you one of my favorite things in a little bit about how to update multiple items at the same time. Right, due date, this one's a little weird because the dates in the buckets are driven by the dates that are already on the cards. So notice I don't have something for today. I don't have one for this week. If I change this one to today, I'm going to put in today's date instead. I now have a today bucket. If I change this one to, let's say, it's another date this week, I'm going to have a this week bucket. So until you have a task assigned to that bucket, the bucket is not available. And then after that, you can update them. So maybe I'm going to put the one in this week. All right, here's your labels. So these ones are not built out. So I'm going to go back to my VP recruiting. After I am working on the, here's my candidate. He was a second choice candidate. These are they're not drag and droppable. I wanted to reorder those. This is new. They didn't used to have all of them on here unless they were assigned, so I'm a little bit bummed about that, or maybe a demo environment thing. I never know. So let's say we've now moved John to the third choice candidate. Or maybe I may want to make him the first choice candidate. So updating the labels. Now, the nice thing about the labels is you can have multiple labels assigned to the same one. So what you think might be a bucket could, you know, you can only have things in one bucket at a time, but you can have multiple labels assigned to a task. So it's kind of a nice way to have a secondary or even a tertiary sort on your tasks using those labels. All right, then priority, again, dragging and dropping just updates them. Okay, so dragging and drop to update, not just for the buckets, for everything else as well. All right, let me show you a few more. The slides again, these have little videos on them. If you play them, you'll see the little videos. So customizing labels, pinning a plan. Oops. My pointer's going crazy here. Drag and drop to update. Applying a theme. This is a big one for me. I do have this on a wish list though. They've given us some standardized themes that you can use to customize the background. I wish they would do like they do in forms where you can pick a color or you can create your own background. There's only some standard backgrounds available. And again, I did a Tip Tuesday on this one. Customizing your notifications. So these are all on the settings menu, and I'll show you where that is in the demo environment. All right. If I want to customize this one, is white on white is sometimes really hard to read. And for those of you that have dark mode, then you'd have the black background. But you do have some choices. I'm going to go under the plan settings here. And here are the general plan settings. So you can pick a different color. I think this is helpful too for visually knowing which board you are on instead of them all looking the same. So you might want to pick different backgrounds for the ones that are, I don't know why it won't change. All right. It likes the purple, apparently. It won't let me change it to another one. All right, so you should be able to choose your themes. What's the name of the group? The group that was created is the leadership group. And then the notifications. This is a big one because sometimes I get bombarded with the planner tasks for things that I'm not really involved in as heavily as I am with others. And it's kind of nice to know when someone assigns a task for me. It sends me an email and I drag and drop and create a task for myself. So I don't need to necessarily have the day-to-day nagging. I call it, planner becomes your mama, and nags you consistently from, you have plans, you have tasks due today, you have tasks due tomorrow, you have tasks due yesterday. So if you don't like all of those coming up and blogging up or clogging up your inbox, you can turn those off. So these are the planner settings for myself. These ones are the administrators can set up, or the owners of it can set the email settings for everyone. And then you can customize that in Outlook if you want to. So this is where you can change your notifications and make it a little bit less cumbersome. And I don't know, I have a mom. I don't need a mom for everything that I'm working on. All right, let's talk about the interaction with your teams and how you can share those plans. This is part of I think the templatizing. Sometimes this can be helpful. I'm going to go back to that let's do the product launch event. Let's say this is a standard layout that we create all the time for a particular item. I can save this plan as a template. You can, if you're the owner, I believe you can save this plan as a template, but sometimes it's just easier to copy the whole plan. And if you're not the administrator, you can't do that. But if you can copy a plan into another area. So if I have another product that I want to use, I'm going to create a standardized plan that I reuse and copy across those different products. I'm going to copy this plan. And again, this used to be only being able to copy the plan within this group. But let's say, now I have the M400 product launch. Maybe I want to have this added to a different group or a different product. So I'm going to select the group that I want to copy this plan across. So it could be the digital initiative for public relations. And then what do you want to include in that item? So if you don't see them, go ahead and expand that and give it, do you want the priority? Do you want the dates, the checklist, the labels? So again, every product or every plan has the same, its own set of labels. So you can copy those labels, which is nice, not having to reinvent the wheel every time you create a new plan. So I'm going to do this as the M400 product launch, and maybe I want the dates included. Probably not, because I'm going to create them for that plan itself, but at least I have these. I'm going to copy the plan, and now that plan will be available in that team for me to add that item. So let's go over to the digital assets in Teams. I'm going to add a new channel for the M400 product launch. And then we're going to put that plan on a tab so they can get to it easily. All right, task by planner to do. And I'm going to use an existing plan from the team. And here's that one I just created. So easy to create the copy of the plan and then add it to a new team in the tab. Do you guys like that? Craig's asking if there are plans for templates in Planner. There are. I believe, I don't remember the roadmap number, but again, copying the plan right now is probably one of the closest things. So like, you may want to create just a group where your plans, like your templated plans are, so you can copy them out of there and put them in your groups. Might be one way to do that. Anybody else know of any updates on the templates? Please share, because I know we're all like, you know, please, because, you know, it's reinventing the wheel every time is very frustrating. All right, this is probably one of my favorite things that they've added. I don't know why this view is not available in Planner Native, but it's only in the Teams tab view. When you go to Planner, you have 3 different views. You have the board view, you have the charts view, and you have the schedule view. And then you get this little pane on the right-hand side that lets you kind of move and work with things while you're in those views. Those are the only 3 that we have. In Teams, we have this list view. Raise your hand if you've used the list view. Like 4 of you? Okay. Yeah, so 5. Okay, so a few of you have seen this. The list view lets you interact with the data a little bit more easily, because when I select an item, I can change the due date, the priority, the label right from here. So if I want to make this an equipment one, if I want to make this one a, let's say we're going to make it PR and equipment, you can add multiple labels at the same time. I can create assignments right from here. This is great. But my favorite thing in here, because going in and updating the planner cards one at a time, even by dragging and dropping them, is extremely cumbersome. If you select multiple items using the Control or Shift key, so I click one item, hold the Shift key and click the last item, that selects the series. If you hold the Control key, it lets you kind of cherry pick the ones that you want to update. Now I can do multiple updates to the exact same, to all of these, the same update to all of them at the exact same time. So I'm going to make these all do the 13th, and you'll see they're all moved out to the 13th as their due date. And so when you're creating your plan and you copy that plan, going into each card and updating the dates is extremely frustrating. So this for me was huge. So hopefully you like that. The thing to watch out for is in the list view of SharePoint, the way you select items is by selecting the little circle on the left-hand side. Notice when I hover, that says mark task as complete. So don't select it by clicking the circle, because I do that all the time inadvertently. But selecting them all here and then assigning these all to Deborah makes it real easy. And again, holding the Control key, and maybe I want to assign these to Alan. So even if I only put it on the tab long enough to get all the schedules and the assignments done and everything, that's fine by me, you know, but I think this is one of the best kept secrets, is the multi-task update in this view. All right. Those are my new and my cool things that we have in Planner. I may be able to give some of your time back, because I know we were over schedule a little bit. But so copying the plan across your teams, again, here's all the slides for those. If I have Tip Tuesdays, you'll see the list view in Teams. I add that on a Tip Tuesday. Go ahead and search for that there. Updating multiple items in list view, the same video. Let's talk about what's next. So these are on the roadmap. There are 2 big ones that we're waiting on, and some of them have been delayed. Hopefully they are sooner than later. I do have a link down here for the how to. I'm going to just can I copy it from here while I'm presenting? Apparently not. you can check it out on the roadmap, do a filter for planner, and you'll see these at the top. These are the ones that are in development. So recurring tasks is a big ask. Being able to say, we're going to create a new meeting, or we need to do a project update every other week or something like that. Being able to have that availability to create the recurring tasks instead of doing the workaround using Outlook, I think is going to be a big one. It's supposed to be released this month. I don't know if it's in any of the pre-release circles. Anybody have access to this yet? Is it working? I'm excited to know.
I have not tested it, but maybe somebody else on the call.
Michelle, you be the insider that would know. Being the
well, there's
Microsoft
others,
person.
I think, that are either in TAP or even other Microsoft folks on the call.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. All right. And then rich text and images in the task notes. So right now the notes field is just plain text. In Planner, there are 2 different note fields to be aware of. And there are, so I'm just going to open one of the cards up from here. This notes field is static, and it does expand. It doesn't look very big, but if you drag the corner, it does get fairly big. But these are just text content, and you can, when you update it, it gets rid of the old thing. The comments on the bottom, however, are a running commentary, and they like, it's like a thread around this task. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish, I have a planner board that I use to plan for speaking events such as this, and I have my checklist of, did I submit my topics? Was I approved? What dates are they? Do I have to book my travel when I used to have to book travel and all of that? And in the comments, I always put what date the call for speakers was posted, because then I know to put it in my queue for that same time frame the next year. So having that history in the comments is really helpful, especially when you are collaborating with other people on the tasks themselves, which is great. All right, so those are the 2 things that we're looking for to happen. Yay, so good. Kayla learned something new about the threads. I know, it's like having that running history, because once you change the notes, the history of it is gone. And there's no like version history on them. All right. All right, so looking forward to those. Hopefully they move them up in the timeline. It seems like a lot of things have been pushed recently, and I think that's just in general everybody. All right, so just a couple of things to let you know about. There are some upcoming events on Friday. There is M365 Below in Chicago, if you're interested in that. I'll put these links in the chat for you. And I'm speaking at all 3 of these, but there are other events out there. I know that we used to have spsevents.org, which had all of the upcoming events, and there's really no central place anymore. So I think it's really nice, that those of us that are aware of events share them with people like you. And of course, these are all free and virtual. The Paris one, I don't have my time slot yet, so that could be interesting about what time I speak. The ones in Europe are usually in the middle of the night. All right, keeping up to date. How can you keep up to date on what's happening in Planner yourself? There's a lot of resources out there. Of course, the roadmap is available. I'm going to put some more links out there for you. There is the Microsoft support with the Planner and help for Microsoft Planner. It has some links to some learning as well. There's also the Planner Tech community, and those communities are amazing. One of the links that Michelle provided at the beginning was for the Ask Me Anythings, and I participate in those, and I'm their office person. They always kind of defer to me for the productivity stuff, even though the guys are just as knowledgeable in most of it, especially Christian Buckley. But definitely go out there and check those out. If you post questions there, we might pull them and answer them via video. We used to do them weekly. Now we record separately, and Christian kind of trickles them out. So that's another opportunity there. All right, here's my gift to you to thank you for joining me today. I have we call it the Power Bytes Learning Portal, and these are video training. They're in, like the name implies, they're in bytes. So they could, if you want to learn how to do one thing, you'll see them there. I also have the content that's not there, I add my own. So if you want to subscribe to that as well, I'll give you a free trial of that one if you're interested. Let me know. I'll put that in the training or in the link as well. And it signs you up for our email list so we can keep you up to date. I'm do unto others as you would want them to do unto you kind of person. I'm not going to sell or spam you. This is specifically, and you can opt in or opt out at any time. So we'd love to have you in there, and we have all of Office 365, not just Planner. So if you're interested in learning any of the other tools, just let me know, or obviously contact me. Thanks so much for your time today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out via social.
Yeah, there are a couple questions. Looks like Mikey has said comments can work with email, though I've not seen them work. So I don't know if that's something that you can show real quick, just to show everybody what does that look like.
So our new environment for our demos are in Windows 11. I'm not used to it yet. It doesn't work the same way. Like when I search for Outlook, it doesn't come up. So let me see if I can bring up Outlook in here. I didn't queue it up. Anybody a Windows 11 person that knows how to get to Outlook from the...
Go to all apps at the top right.
Bless you, Donald.
No problem.
Yeah, that was not a happy surprise yesterday. I'm like, okay, now I need to become a Windows 11 person. I haven't installed it myself.
And you can actually start searching if you just start typing. It doesn't show the search box, but it does come up.
It does. Okay, because I've always hit window and then search. That's my MO.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. So here's the Yo Mama Microsoft Planner. And if somebody adds a, this is the notification that you have tasks that are upcoming. If you click the link, it'll take you out to that task. And when you add a comment to it, it will send a notification, flights are expensive, waiting until next week. And then click send. It does actually send an email out to everyone. I don't know if it notifies you of your own comments, though, but I get them all the time. One of the clients that I work for, there have been comments on your task, but again, that's the notifications as well. On the board itself, you would need to set up the notifications. So maybe that's why it's not working. Sorry, little light bulb over my head now. Plan settings. On the notifications, you may have to select the options that are here. And then here's the planner notifications help if you need to know how they work. Hopefully that helps.
We kind of had a similar issue, Shari, and if I remember correctly, I think I was told by Microsoft that the kind of finicky thing about planner tasks is if the task is assigned to you, or if you make an initial comment on the task, then you will get email notifications. But if it's not, then you won't. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, it does have to be assigned to you in order to get the notifications. Yeah.
Okay.
So, which seems kind of odd that, if you want notifications and you have to assign it to everything to yourself. But maybe you're not responsible for completing it, but you want to stay up to date on that. That's interesting. I wonder, they don't have
I've found that I've had that exact issue at a client, and we found that if someone goes in and just makes a comment on a task, they don't have to be assigned it. If they just participate in that comment, then they start getting the email notifications.
Okay.
It's odd because in order to trigger something that you're going to get in an email in another app in Outlook, you have to do something in Planner by commenting and participating in that conversation. Otherwise, you wouldn't, unless you were assigned. Definitely, you get it if you are assigned on that.
Okay, but if you're involved in the comment, well, that seems like, let's say there's 10 people that want to keep up to date. They have to make a comment, and now you've just gummed up comments by people saying,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
And
think
then
there's a
assigning 10 people a task doesn't make sense because it's like, well, who's going to do it?
I
Right.
think there was a user voice item where someone had asked for an option to like ticket if they want to follow the task, like some kind of check mark, where you can go
Yeah.
in, look at a list of tasks, and then check off the ones you want to follow, and then you'll just start receiving them instead of going through that process. But I
So
don't know.
maybe the workaround for now is just typing in following and putting it there, just so that you get the notifications. That just seems real clunky to me.
It
But-
is.
Yeah, but it'll work. Is
This is-
anyone familiar with how about providing a comment via email? So when you're when you get your comment email notification, that you can then respond via email.
I've seen it. Yes, it goes into the comments, but it's also emailed to the participants.
That's where I've seen where it seems a little bit clunky because sometimes it seems to work and sometimes it doesn't. I haven't had a chance to test if like, do you have to, like we heard talking about before, do you have to be assigned the task for that to happen?
No, there's actually kind of a bug with that. Boy, it's been a while since that's come up. We had an issue too where the task owner was trying to use email to kind of get feedback from different people, and they were expecting that as people would reply, all those replies would hit the comments section, and it had something to do with, I don't know if it's like the subject or the to-do field or something with Outlook. If it's not done just right, it doesn't land there. I can't remember what it was. I may have some notes. And that's what the Microsoft support had told us a few months ago.
The demo environment doesn't look like it's set up to do that, but yeah, you can reply, not via email though. You have to reply, like click the link to reply and it'll take you back to the task, as far as I know. Anybody had a different experience? Because here, this one's saying it's not deliverable, so the demo environment's not working, but it would look like this. It'll say there have been comments on the blah, blah, blah task, whatever it is. All right. Cool. Well, thank you all for that. I know it's never perfect, right? It's an ever evolving tool, and I'm not sure the planner voice is no longer active. I'm not sure if they have found a replacement product for that yet, but hopefully they do, so that we can still provide the feedback for the team. I know
There is. If you go out to user voice, you're going to now see the new experience.
Okay.
So you should be able to get to user voice. Yep.
Uservoice.com?
No, I think user voice, maybe .microsoft.com, or just.
Or I think it was Planner, right? Planner. Nope. All right, so we'll see if we can find out what that is and let you all know. I'll do some research while Michelle's doing her magic and see if I can figure out where it's at. Because the link that was in the Microsoft resources, it says that it's no longer active, and they called it Planner Voice. So yeah, giving that feedback I think is always important. They want to hear from us.
And there is another question. I don't know if Mike, you wanted to come off mute, just talking about, is there a way to save a view in Planner?
Save a view?
Yeah, each time he enters Planner, he has to resort to view by group as opposed to like getting to task list or another.
Yeah,
view.
you go into a plan and the default view is usually, I don't actually recall what it is, but it's like sorted by, and let's say you have lists of tasks,
Right.
and it's sorted not by users or and then especially the columns across the top. Often I've had to I want to move, I know you can move the columns around, but it does seem to reset when you go away. And maybe it's because I wasn't the owner of most of the projects I'm on. I'm more of a participant often, and I can't rearrange things.
So the good and the bad news is this is meant to be a collaborative tool. Everybody has the exact same permissions. So somebody behind you probably changed it after you did.
Mm.
And yeah, there's no way to save that. I want to see the at-risk ones first and then the on-track ones after that. Well,
Sure.
if Bob comes in here later or whatever and changes it back, then yeah, unfortunately there is no way. And then I'm with you on this sorting. Like, how do you sort these? I want to sort these by due date, or I want to sort them by those. That's where I think the Teams option for the list view that's here, because you can sort by assigned to priority due date, and you can even filter the items by, let's say I want to filter them by the ones that are assigned to Alex. Well, nothing's assigned to Alex, but this gives you that better flexibility, but you still can't.
And that's exactly where I would do that. However, each time I come in, I have to set up that filter and that sort by.
So I don't know.
List. Yeah. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I think the list view with the cards in with Microsoft Lists, I think might be it could be, because you can save views of lists in SharePoint in lists, right? You can't do it in Planner yet. I'm interested to see how many how many Planner boards, or how Planner is affected with that new task board view that's being implemented for Teams. Because with a Teams SharePoint list, if it's a task list, you can sync it to Outlook. Can't sync this to Outlook anymore. That was one of my tips, and it's not there. Yeah, so there's it'd be interesting to see how that development.
And my own workaround is just use tasks by Planner, and that shows my stuff, which is what I need to focus on. And but it's not within the context of the project. That's the only downside to it.
Yeah, because you can't see. Yeah, you can filter by plan. Oh no, you can't. Not in here. Nope.
Actually, what I noticed with that is if you add the plan to a tab, like when you were showing the example of creating the plan from the tab in the channel, it's kind of strange. If you add a plan to a tab, then it shows up in that list in tasks for Planner app. So like if you go ahead and
there's already one here, so let me go to a different channel.
It's just really strange how they've kind of designed some of that to work, but if I remember correctly anyway.
Are you talking about these?
Yeah, so as long as you add it to a tab inside the team, it seems like that then it'll show up on your personal tasks app in Teams.
Oh, interesting.
See if it shows up.
Yeah,
for you.
so these are.
Yeah, if you add like if you were to add an existing one or a new one there, it should then show up on the left. It's not there.
Yeah, this by team. This is the same one twice, because I put on two different tabs.
Yeah, because you put it on the tab. That's what I meant. It only shows up there if you put it on a tab. It seems like I could be wrong, but is that right?
Have to play with that now. You inspire me. More blog posts. Oh, I am actually on my Shortcut Shari Tip Tuesdays. I'm on a task management series, and I've already done To Do and Outlook, and right now I'm doing Planner. So if you may have noticed on my slides that that it's coming up. So I just started Planner last week. So everything for the next probably 6-7 weeks is going to be about Planner or tips in Planner. So if you think that'd be helpful, or forward it to other people as well. So some of this is I may have to add to that when you guys teach me stuff, because that's really cool. And helping people to be more productive, right? So very cool. All right. Any other questions or comments? What your favorite thing was? I always love to know that.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat that said, when you speak at your Paris event, are you speaking in French?
No. Je parle français très un peu, very little. It's funny because we took 32 days and went to Europe, and at that time I told my husband, if we go to France, I got it. Well, I took 3 years of French in high school. Then I went to Quebec, and I was a little cocky about it. And then my first phrase out of my mouth, they responded back to me. I'm like, I got nothing. So I realized 3 years of high school French doesn't do much for you, but in the real world. So no, it will be in English. Thanks. There's a bunch of English sessions too. So, it's a universal language in a lot of the European countries. It's a secondary language. So it's kind of cool to listen to them all. All right. Yeah, we did the Cabo event, and that was, right, Michelle, that was, there were Spanish speaking and there were English. So it's fun to do the international ones. Awesome.
All right. Are there any other questions for Shari? All right. Well, thank you, Shari. This was awesome as always. Appreciate you being here and joining us, and look forward to your next time that you're going to be speaking with us.
I appreciate it. And I'll come back and visit whenever I can. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. I'll go ahead and share my slides. And I'm going to be talking to you today about Viva connections, and maybe one of the board members can follow along in the chat if there's any questions. As I'll be doing demo a lot like what Shari was doing. But let me first just start off. I'll open up the chat and ask, has anybody on the call deployed Viva connections yet? Go ahead, you can raise your hand or do whatever you want to do. All right, well, it looks like this might be net new for everyone. So hopefully I can provide you a really great overview of what Viva Connections is. What is the Viva Suite to begin with? So I'm going to break it down and really go through a complete, total end-to-end deployment of what Viva Connections is, how you start it, how you enable it, and what's the end experience. A little bit about me. I'm Michelle. I help run the board here at the user group. And I also am a Microsoft employee. I focus on Microsoft Teams, but really my entire career has been in SharePoint, and now more specifically around Viva. What I want to cover today are what are the benefits of Viva, getting started creating a SharePoint communication site to quickly deploy your intranet. You can cross off the word intranet and you can say any employee experience that you want to deliver through Teams and through the mobile experience. You can do so with a SharePoint communication site. I'm going to talk about the evolution. So what was all the announcements we've had over the last couple of years on the new Viva Connections. I'm going to then give you some deployment guides. I'm going to go into demo and really walk you through what and how quickly you can deploy it. And then I'm going to leave you with some FAQ and resources. Those are the frequently asked questions that we've heard from customers. We've heard from internal employees at Microsoft to say, hey, what about this scenario? Or what about this? What do I need? I've got a lot of really great information on that. So what is Microsoft Viva? This is an announcement that we made back in February around delivering an employee experience for customers. What does that mean? It's really a set of 4 modules inside of Teams, so applications that you can help continue to connect better to your culture at your company. We first start with Viva Insights. That really is around personal well-being, manager and organizational insights into how teams are behaving. That was actually from My Analytics. So if you had or are familiar with My Analytics, that is the personal portion of Viva Insights. And then if you're familiar with Workplace Analytics, that is the managerial and leadership insights that you get to learn more around how people are collaborating in teams, learning also around talent retention, resiliency in the workforce. So that is the first pillar. The second pillar is Viva Topics. I'm really, really excited about this one. I did deliver this session. I think we recorded it on Admin Day. It's out in our YouTube channel. So if you want to learn more about Viva Topics, you can. But basically what this is a Wikipedia for your company using AI. So the first data source being SharePoint Online is that the Graph API is crawling all that content and basically connecting all those endpoints and all those signals by connecting people, files, and information all up into a topic card. From there, you have a SharePoint person or what we call a topic author that can then publish that particular topic for everyone to see. And the end result basically is that wherever you are inside of Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, if you're in Teams, if you're in Outlook, you're in SharePoint, and even when you're in Yammer, if that topic is to come up, you can go ahead and it gets underlined. You can hover over it and a topic card appears that shows you, maybe it's an acronym, maybe it's a name of a project. It'll show you the experts that are related to that project, along with all the files that have that word in there. So you can craft that. So the AI gives you that first draft. You can then edit that. So if you find like you don't want a file that's included in it, you can go ahead and get rid of that and then publish that topic. I really, really think that this is the next level type of Wikipedia or knowledge base that's built for you to make search a lot easier. And you can search on those topics. So it's a lot, I think, also similar to, we're really familiar with people cards. Some people call them contact cards. When you hover over somebody's name, a drop-down appears, right? You get to see their attributes that are from Active Directory, like their title, maybe their location. You can quickly IM them or email them. If you've hooked up LinkedIn, you can then go ahead and click on LinkedIn, that link, and go out to see more information about that person. It's a lot like that, but now it's with a topic card. And as that topic card appears, you can go ahead and click on that, and a automatic SharePoint page is generated when you publish that topic, that you can go out and then click on the topic card and go out to that SharePoint page for more information. So really robust. It also has Yammer Q&A attached to that page, and it shows you also the graph connectors of how all of those items are connected to other topics. So really fascinating. I always suggest, because I think this is such a cool new way of delivering information to end users, is go out there, enable the trial. We have a 60-day trial out there. Depending on the size of all of your files in SharePoint, you can go ahead and it might take a couple of weeks for it to start delivering you all the topics, but just really cool to see what are those topics out there. And of course, it's using SharePoint as the backend for the first data source. That might be a hint for you. There might be other data sources coming, like we have for search, meaning you can search different applications like SharePoint on-prem, other third-party applications that you may use. So the first one, being SharePoint, we'll be able to crawl that content, deliver that for you, and it just really would be interesting to learn what are those projects. But because the data lives in SharePoint, that means that you only have access. So I may have a different experience than maybe Shari or Don, or everyone on this call may see things differently because it's utilizing the SharePoint permission. So again, it's security trimmed. The next one is Viva Learning. That's really a learning management aggregator. It's an app in Teams. We're first rolling it out that you get access to things like MS Learn. So if you use MS Learn to go out, learn about, maybe you take different courses in it, you will see those show up there, as well as M365 apps for training. We do have also a trending top 125 LinkedIn learning courses that are also going to be in that. And then SharePoint. So if you have a training site in SharePoint, you can connect that as well. And then where the LMS or learning management system aggregation kind of comes in is if you use something like Coursera, EDX, Saba, Pluralsight, you could also connect those. So now you're bringing and really keeping, where everyone's working today in Teams, access to those insights and access to topics, access to your learning. So this fourth one is on Viva Connections. This is your company branded employee app. It does not necessarily mean intranet. It just means a very unique experience that when you get it deployed, you have a way or a new feature capability inside of SharePoint called Dashboard. And within Dashboard, and I'll walk you through it, basically it's a set of what they call them cards. I honestly think they're just like mini web parts. There's different types of web parts. You can bring in your Teams app, you can bring in shifts, you can bring in an adaptive card, all within this kind of mini web part group. And what that really turns out to be is you can add that dashboard web part to your SharePoint page, but that dashboard is also the first thing you see in the mobile experience of Viva Connections. And then along with that, you can have targeted audience. So I'm going to go through all of that, but that's what the 4 modules are for Microsoft Viva. And then at Ignite, we just announced a new one using ally.io, and that's for OKRs. So if you're setting goals for your organization, it's going to be another new app that's going to be put together in this Viva suite. So what are some of the benefits for Viva Connections? I think there's a ton here. It's really around having a curated experience, a curated way that you're receiving information. No longer do we need to go out to a site to get that information. Let's bring it in as an app in Teams. Let's also curate the experience in the mobile view. So I'll show you what that means by the new audience targeting that we have in SharePoint. I've been around SharePoint a long time. I don't usually champion audience targeting, but I do now. Before it was, think of every Saturday, the script would run and it would go ahead and get all the new users and all the new audiences. And so you have to wait for that. It's all real time now, and you can use things like Azure Active Directory security groups to create those. So it's much, much simpler. And it's just really a better way to consume information if, say, your Corp Comm team is trying to communicate to a specific region or a specific office. You can go ahead and set that communication that delivers directly to those people, that they only see that particular card. I'll try to get used to the new naming, but that's one of the added values to it. It's also cool because when you enable this, you also are enabling the ability to navigate your intranet from within Teams. And soon we'll also have the ability to search Teams that will search then your intranet. So really, combining no matter where you're at, you're going to get to the information you need. And then being able to share content easily. I think we probably can say we all know how to do that, but having the ability to grab a link for something you're reading on your intranet in Teams and sharing it in a chat just makes everything a lot easier. So let's take a look at what exactly the format looks like. As you see on the left, the top part says access to your intranet resources. So that's around enabling global navigation. Once you do that, you can either enable it for your SharePoint page, or you can enable a hub or global navigation. And what you get with that is when you click on the app icon that we call Viva Connections, but you actually rebrand that to whatever you want to name that. That could be your intranet name. That could be maybe during the time right now, you're very focused on people returning to work. And so you need a crisis communication app. You can create a SharePoint communication site for that same reason. And then when you click on that, though, you're going to get a drop down, much like you see here, of things that you're familiar with. Things like your global navigation of your site, your sites that you frequent, and then any recommended news for you. And then, of course, you can stay as you are really going through, moving throughout the navigation or the pages or the news information inside of this communication site. You're able to stay within Teams. So you're not clicking a link and going, oh, now I'm going out to a browser or something like that. So it's all staying in the context that you're working in. Soon, I said you're going to share or be able to search for your content inside of Teams. And then, of course, sharing content. I'm going to first start off with the lookbook. I would love to see a show of hands. I do have the chat open or participant open. Has anybody used the lookbook or seen it before? Awesome. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Sheila. Fantastic. The hands start raising. I think, honestly, hands down, the lookbook is probably the coolest thing, well, since the Fab 40, if you get my drift. But it's a set of templates that you can easily deploy. So if you're not a designer, you're in IT, and you're tasked with creating a new communication site or even an intranet, chances are you might not be on the design side. And then maybe you have to pull in marketing, you have to pull in people, and then you got to set a budget, and you have to do all these things. When you know you already have the content, you just need it to look pretty. That's where really this lookbook comes into play. And it helps you create a way simply and honestly, 5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, that you can connect this to your tenant. Of course, you need to be an admin to do that. I think a global admin, if I'm not mistaken. And once you do that, everything that you selected will then become available in a SharePoint site. So I'm going to show you that today. I'm going to hopefully not keep talking and get into demo soon. This might be my last slide, and then maybe one more. And then I'll show you demo, and then we'll go into some of the FAQ in the end. This is what I built out for what I have seen being the Viva Connections evolution. I remember back in September 2020, they announced this home site app. I didn't understand it at all, but it was the ability to make one site inside of SharePoint be a home site. And I didn't really connect what that meant yet. I just knew that sounded really cool. You could only do it in PowerShell. And I didn't really understand what was the next things that were going to happen. Well, fast forward, 6 months, March 2021, so almost a year ago now, we announced Viva Connections as a line of business app. So what I mean by that is not an inherent Microsoft app, but a third-party app. And you could only view it in Teams through the desktop. So it kind of limited, but of course, right away, I got really excited. Of course, I want to bring SharePoint into Teams. I want to see how it looks. And you could do some things like, I think, side loading. You have to do this mainly through PowerShell. But then now fast forward another 6 months, you can see a trend here. But in September, not that long ago, we made it available as a first-party app, basically removing the PowerShell, even though you can still use that, but made everything just toggle switches. And that's why in my limited time here, I'm going to be able to actually show you what that looks like and how quickly you can deploy. And then at Ignite, a couple months back, we announced all of our modules of Viva, the Viva suite as general availability. So now you can see Viva Connections through your desktop and the mobile experience. So that's the evolution, but what does it take to set this up? There's a lot of documentation out there. However, I got confused, and I just thought maybe others also got confused of what were the steps it took and what were really the requirements to get this going. The first thing that you need to use SharePoint Online, and you need to have a communication site. So those are the two things. You need those both to be able to create or connect it to a home site. So I'll show you where that is in the SharePoint Admin Center. So that was the first one. And then the second one, the SharePoint Management Shell, you don't need it unless you really like playing in it. You do need to be a SharePoint admin to connect it to a home site, as well as a Teams admin credential to be able to set your permission policies. So like I said, there's two versions. You had a first party, and then prior to that, you had that custom line of business app, which was a little clunky. I'm really glad that we've now rolled out the first party. A couple of things, we now have the mobile experience. So when you do enable Viva Connections with the first party app, you now are getting the dashboard experience, the feed experience, and the resources. So dashboard, that is once you enable Viva Connections, you can set up your dashboard. And that's going to be those web parts that you can create. That's going to be the experience that you see on the mobile. That also confused me. So I thought that really I was bringing my SharePoint intranet or communication site into Teams as an app, pinning it to the side rail. And then when I went to my mobile experience, that I would see my intranet the same way I would see it in the Teams desktop client. Not true at all. You actually see the dashboard. So it's important when you roll out, if you're not rolling out mobile, then that doesn't really matter. But if you do decide to roll out mobile or do this in some type of phased approach, you want to consider, how do you want to create the dashboard? What makes sense for your end users? There's a whole lot of documentation on how you can prep, plan for creating curated experiences through targeted audiencing to make sure it's the best experience possible. And the feed there, that's around SharePoint and Yammer. So if you use them both, you're going to see both news. If you use one over the other, it doesn't necessarily matter. It will be posted there. And in case you didn't know, inside of SharePoint News, you can boost news. And when you boost it, it might not seem, I guess, as easy to understand because it doesn't say you boosted it in Viva Connections, but it does boost here. So it goes to the top of your feed. And then resources, a lot like the global navigation, when you click it on the app inside of Teams, it gives you resources. And that's exactly what the resources are there. Will be access to the rest of the resources of that communication site that you enabled for Viva Connections. All right, let's just get out of here. I love to talk about PowerPoint or talk about, step by step, but I'm a visual learner. I'm sure a lot of you are also visual learners. So let's just get going, show you what it looks like creating a communication site through the lookbook. We are then going to enable the SharePoint home site. We're going to actually, first, there's only one home site currently. That's all we get. I hope we get more. I think that'd be really interesting. I'd love to have different SharePoint communication sites inside of Teams. Currently, you can link them up, but the home site experience is really cool. Then I'm going to show you in SharePoint how to do global navigation and just enable that. And then go into Viva Connections and set up a dashboard. And then go into the Teams Admin Center, walk you through how to set up the app permission policy and the app setup policy. And then in the end, I'm going to show you what the experience looks like inside of Teams. So that's hopefully all I will accomplish that with 37 minutes. So let's wish me luck. All right, so welcome to the SharePoint Lookbook. A lot of you raised your hand, which is fantastic. It's a no-brainer to me when you're looking at redeveloping or creating a communication site for the first time. What's out there? These are already utilizing the newest SharePoint framework. And what I mean by that is, you know how we have classic, we have modern, we talk about that all the time. You probably hear it, and you may not even know which version you're on, or if a page is or a site is, or how do you even make it modern. This is utilizing what we call the modern experience. It is created, and we had to really think of SharePoint design from the ground up to make it responsive and make it fluid. So be able to add the new types of languages that we have, to be able to see things on a mobile device. So if you've ever experienced SharePoint prior to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It wasn't that great. It looked a lot like, the web version. So you had to scroll over, you had to scroll down. It just was very cumbersome. So that's why Viva Connections requires the new SharePoint framework, a communication site, to have that responsivity, the elasticity when it comes to the design and viewing it on different devices. All right, so let's take a look. I'm in lookbook.microsoft.com. So if you want to follow along, if you even want to enable something in your test environment, feel free, follow along, and you can do this. Okay, so what you first get is you get to create stunning sites. We have tabs here for organization, department, team, community, solutions, and schools. So from the ground up, you can go ahead and pick any template that you'd like. I'm just going to show you a few things here. There are great department ones, team ones. I like the community ones because you get things like a charity site. And think of every single year you have to build out, or you copy, or you use the old one of different events that happen. A lot of organizations around what October Giving Month, maybe there's different events or a different charity that you need to create something inside of SharePoint so everybody can go and learn, participate in the events, learn about the giving program. You can quickly get this deployed, and now all you need to do is replace the content. So super easy. Then we've got solutions. If you haven't learned about M365 learning pathways, I think we've talked a bit about this on our user group calls. But if you haven't, you can go ahead, check that out and get that deployed. That is a real-time app from Microsoft that you get training information and apps that are directly updated, so you don't have to now reinvent the wheel when it comes to training. I'm sure that we've probably all tampered at one time or another, sending somebody a how-to or even creating a video ourselves. No longer do you need to do that. Create a SharePoint communication site utilizing this solution. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to use the perspective. I think it's really cool. But you do have others here, like crisis communication benefits. That's another Viva Connections deployment that you can utilize. And you can interchange them. So you can create maybe benefits during that period of time, make that your home site. And then once that period of time is over, you can remove it, yank it out of there, and set now a new home site. So no matter what, you've got that front and center inside of Teams. All right, I'll go ahead and create the perspective. And what's great here, if you're familiar with SharePoint, it tells you what site features will be enabled. So that's something that an admin normally has to toggle on and off. It tells you what web parts are used, as well as what content is included. So here I know all these site features. Great, I want a mega menu. I think those are pretty cool. Web parts that are used, we've got carousel, which is nice to go through a list of events that are happening. And then content that's included. So with this, I think it looks great. I can go ahead now and just add this to my tenant. I don't need to give anybody permissions. I can play around with it. I can wait for marketing to update the content, or CorpCom, or whoever owns the content on your communication sites. Where it says add to your tenant, I'll go ahead and add. And I think it probably timed out. Give me a second. And also the system requirements. So you do need to be on SharePoint Online. You need to be a global admin, which I am in my demo tenant. And then I do have my language set to English. Let's go ahead and open that up. Well, it wouldn't be a fantastic demo without the demo gods playing with me. So let's try another one. It could be my demo environment. All right, thanks, Jim. I'm glad that you said you're getting the message too. Let's pick another one. Again, I can see everything, and I'll go ahead and add it to my tenant. Well, the nice thing is I already added it, so I really wish I would have been able to show you this, though. Maintenance break. Oh, great. Well, of course they're going to do maintenance while I am demoing. So thank you, Microsoft. I appreciate that.
Next time,
I do have what's that?
Next time, get some clearance before you do this.
I know they didn't get. Yeah, you're right. I should have gotten clearance. Okay, so honestly, though, it takes less than 5 minutes to connect it. The experience is when you go to add to your tenant. Normally, you go ahead and put whether you want to use the /teams or /sites, like a normal create site experience, and then you go ahead and put the name of your site that you want it to be called. And then it creates that URL, and then you hit something like start or create. And then it notifies you when it's ready, under 5 minutes, and now you get a whole experience that's in modern SharePoint. So this is the result of that. And now all I need to do is change the content out. Maybe change my global navigation, depending on if it's just a benefits page, there might not be a ton of planning involved in that, or even crisis communication. But always think through your information architecture, knowing your audience, knowing what they need. And then as you get your content built or migrate the content that you wanted to bring over, you now are all set up. So now let's fast forward. And I love how quick and easy this is. It used to be PowerShell. I can grab this URL and go into my SharePoint Admin Center. And we have now in the Admin Center under settings, a new type of app called Home Site. When I click on that, all I do is add the URL. So as you see here, how easy it is, I can go ahead, remove it. I can then, and that's great if you're just doing communication sites for a short period of time. I can remove it and now add another one. Like I said, you can only do one at a time. So I went ahead and I added the /site/Contoso World, which is the URL up here of the lookbook template that I had created. All right, now I have that set. Now the next thing I need to do is enable global navigation. So you do that at the root level of your SharePoint site in my template that I created in settings. So when I click on settings, after you enable the home site, you get a new portion called global navigation and set up Viva connections. So the global navigation is really what will be the experience when I'm in Teams when I click on the app. So what I need here is I need an image. So I need a logo. I need to just do the toggle switch, like I said, super easy. I also need to give it a name. And then I need to decide what's my navigation source. This could be home site navigation or hub or global. So depending on how mature you have your SharePoint communication site rolled out or connected to a hub, you can from there just determine which one you want to do. I like my home site navigation just fine, so I'm going to leave it. And that is what will be displayed inside of the new experience. All right, and then from there, I'm going to go ahead and set up Viva connections. But I just want to show you here, I also have the SharePoint app bar enabled. That's right here. So like you're going to see in Teams, while I'm in SharePoint, I also see it here. So if I click on global navigation, guess what? I'm getting exactly what this navigation is. If I changed it to hub and I had this be a hub site, it would then display the hub site portion. I also get my sites of what I'm frequently in. I also get news. And these are recommended and they populate up through multiple news sites. And then my files, which is great because I love getting into my recent files from no matter where I'm at. So that is your SharePoint app bar. And now let's go ahead and set up Viva connections. There's really nothing to do except click on that and then click on View Dashboard. So if you're thinking right now, I'm not sure we're ready for the dashboard because that's kind of more like the mobile experience, you don't need to go this far. You created the SharePoint home site. You can go right into the Teams Admin Center and enable Viva connections, rename it, and then set your permission and your setup policy accordingly. But while we're here, we might as well take a look because this is really, I think, going to be a best practice for when you do roll out mobile for SharePoint or for Teams. When you're enabling the mobile experience, you can really create and slice and dice that down. And what you see here is things that I've already created. So automatically dashboard.aspx gets created, but it's blank. Kind of goofy. I wish it could start to say, hey, start your template here. You do need to do what you normally do for editing a SharePoint page. You need to click on edit. And from there, I'm glad the service isn't down for me here. The default is mobile experience. I can also see what it would look like on desktop. But again, it's using the latest SharePoint framework, so it will render to the size that the dashboard is located in. Important to note, and I'll show you this in a second, the dashboard is also a web part. So you will be able to bring in the dashboard as a web part on your communication homepage, so everyone will be able to see it in Teams. But again, distincting the mobile experience, dashboard is its own tab. All right, so we can go ahead and add a card, but I just want to show you a few that I've already created. I've connected Yammer here. So again, a quick way to get to Yammer. I've also included a video from my M365 Learning Pathways site. I have an audience targeted card here that's for just specific news going to Plant 247. I then have a connect back to my SharePoint site for all the learning pathway videos. I have a link to another SharePoint site for leadership connection. And then I brought in an adaptive card for stock. And I could even add a targeted audience to that, so only that group can see the stock update or the stock ticker on your dashboard. I added expense report. So if you think of how frequent, when you think about planning this, who are your audiences? What are those scenarios that they care about or they do every day? Sales folks, they may need the expense area. You may have different areas that are requiring check-in and do your health report before you can even go in the building. Maybe it's even a building permit, or whatever the use case could be. You can have those applications that you've already created for your organization and teams being brought in here. I'll show you what that looks like. All right, let's go ahead and add a card. And this is why I get confused. It says card, however, it looks like a web part list, right? It looks like how you would normally add web parts to SharePoint. So it first shows me what have I last used, but then gives me a list. As far as I know, this is only going to grow. So we're first starting with approvals. So if you like the approvals app, you're a manager, you're constantly having to do approvals for expense, approvals for time off. Make sure that that app gets included in the dashboard so they can easily get to their approvals. We also have assigned tasks. So now instead of waiting in your email for an assigned task from Planner, you can bring in assigned task right into that dashboard experience where you can manage your tasks, you can work on your tasks. And then I'm going to skip card designer. I'll talk about that in a second. Think of your frontline workers who are utilizing a time entry program. Maybe they're using Kronos and they've connected it to shifts, or they're utilizing shifts separately. You can bring shifts right into the mobile experience. So no longer, they can go into Teams, they can go into the Viva Connections app that you've rebranded. And then once you do that, they can go into shifts and actually clock in. So really simple, really useful. And then of course, Teams apps, I'll go ahead and just grab that. When that comes up, I need to go ahead and click on the edit card. So that's the normal SharePoint experience when you add a web part. And from here, here's the default options. You can either have the card size be medium or large. Medium in a mobile experience it's one of two in the column. Large means it fits across the whole width. Now I can select a Teams app. These are all the apps that I've built inside of my demo tenant. So think of any apps that you've built. Maybe you do have staff check-in or a health report, or maybe it's a crisis communication app. All that, or even a bot, you can bring in here. So think of, you're now on your mobile experience, you're in Teams, you're inside of your communication site, and you can click on a bot and ask it questions. Like, what are the help desk hours? Where is, what are the lunch specials of the day? If you want to go ahead and make a bot about that, you certainly could. Maybe it's a team request. You want to create a new team, but you are, IT is saying, hey, you need to do this through this governance method. So you could go ahead and request a team right through that. So think of it as being endless. And once you get them added, I'll go ahead and just add one just to show you what that would look like. Staff check-ins, that is a third-party app through GitHub that you can go ahead and deploy. When you deploy it, you either get staff check-ins, meaning I'm a staff person and I can check in. But if I'm the admin, I might want that version of it. So again, thinking through scenarios for the audiences that are consuming the dashboard through their mobile experience or as a web part on the main page. I'll go ahead and add staff check-in. And now here, I could go ahead and target this. What I mean by targeting is that you can create up to 50 Azure Active Directory security groups. And you can create them by region, by department, by location. You can make them dynamic to say department equals marketing, show me everybody, and that's who I'm going to communicate to through this audience targeting experience. In this case, I believe I've created one that's Contoso Plant 247, and everyone inside of this plant has to check in prior to going in. Maybe all my other plants are closed down, or my corporate office is closed down, but this plant must stay open as maybe they're the essential workers for that location. But we need to require that they check in. And so this is a really easy way to put the app in front of them. They can easily get into prior to going into the building. So that's one example. And as you see, there's no save button inside of here. So I'll go ahead and exit. And really what you have is publish and edit. And so I could republish this. But I do want to come back to the adaptive card experience. I would love to show of hands, if you would, on who has played with adaptive cards. I know it might take a second to get over to the raise hand or the chat to let me know. There can't be, it has to be someone. Don, have you?
I've not had the opportunity, so this would be a very good thing. Oh, we got a couple of people.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite things. It's all about extensibility inside of not just the dashboard experience, but Microsoft Teams. How it works. So I'm going to go into Card Designer, and I'm going to go ahead and edit this. It's kind of a copy-paste game, if you will. I'm going to go up to Adaptive Cards. And adaptivecards.io is the URL. This is owned by Microsoft, and this is where you can go and get a template to start with, and then you can modify. I'm a light developer. I mean, I think I might have been more of a heavier developer in my younger years, but I don't really want to spend a lot of time coding, but I want to see what's out there. So maybe a stock update, maybe that particular, the Microsoft symbol, and I want to select all that information and put that into the adaptive card. And maybe the audience's executives, and they are requesting that they get to see the stock ticker on their dashboard. So that's one example. You could do flight updates. You could do, you name it. You can make this as curated as you possibly want. But basically the concept here is that you can grab a sample, or you can actually go in and create it yourself through the Schema Explorer. I'm not going to get into too much of that. If you are interested in learning more about adaptive cards, because they're used everywhere inside of Teams, put that in the survey, and we'll find an expert for you that will walk you through this and show you how to create some of these things that make sense, that are relevant. But honestly, all you do is you create this, you copy and paste what's called the JSON. So I'm not going to get into JSON, but just know that that's all you do that copy. And back in my Viva connections, as you see here, I can have different template types. So heading, image, description. I can go ahead in the heading and I can change it. Maybe I want to say, this is my adaptive card. And then the heading, I can say, maybe it's a time tracker. Could be really anything you want it to be. And then I get card actions. So I can go to a link when you click on it. You can do several things in these cards. Here's a list. So you could show it as a quick view. I'll show you what that looks like. I have the stock ticker show as a quick view, meaning just it pops out. You can go to a link, or you can go to a Teams app. So if you want to actually have an app connected to this adaptive card, you certainly could. And then you could have buttons. So buttons could be things like approve or submitted, or it could be a form upload. The versatility is just really, really like never ending when I think of all the different things. And this is where you copy and paste your JSON. So once you create your adaptive card, you go ahead, paste it inside of here, and of course continue on to the audience targeting. If you have a specific audience that you want to deploy to, you can choose from your 50 audiences that you've already created, maybe in Azure Active Directory. So the result of that, so let me go ahead and show you some other things here. Let me go into the mobile experience so you can now at a glance see what the view of mobile looks like. Desktop to me isn't really applicable because you're putting it inside of a web part to add to the page. But these are all the various ones. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to preview this. And the reason why I'm showing you preview is this is the only way that I can tell what everybody will see by default versus the audience that I targeted. So if I select audience to preview, I can go in here and I can say, this is the audience that I created that is connected to a couple of these cards. Once I do that, they display up here. So that's the only way as an admin that I can see the difference between what everybody else sees versus what the particular audience or group will see. Now I'll close the preview. I'll go ahead and publish this out. So this is the dashboard. This is the mobile experience that they're going to see. But now, how do I add this to my Viva page? So let's go back here and go into my communication site. In this case, I called it Contoso World. It is a intranet, but it could be a communication site for any other reason that you wanted to deploy connections with. Let's go ahead and add the web part. I think I like the dashboard being located here, so I went ahead, edited the page. Now I'm going to add a new web part, and you're going to see dashboard for Viva connections. And if you don't, you can go ahead and search on that as well. Cool. There we go. And automatically it comes in. Now, some things to note, and I'll go ahead and just republish this out. Some things to note is that I have a blank spot. I did this specifically so you could see I'm not in the group for the Contoso, that plant group that I created. So when you're thinking of the ones that you have audience targeting for, that's the experience, unfortunately, right now that they're going to have. So you may want to create the web parts or the cards that have that audience targeting, maybe down at the bottom. So you may want to go ahead and put them closer to the bottom here. I think that's probably the best way to get around it right now. But I wanted to make sure that was deliberate so you could see it's kind of a weird discrepancy in that design. All right, let's get into the Teams Admin Center. Now we feel like, one, we created the lookbook. We went ahead and made our intranet or communication site, whatever you wanted to use. You enabled the global navigation. You also set up a dashboard. You don't need to do that. It's an optional thing depending on your phased approach to rolling it out. And now we need to actually give it permissions in the Teams Admin Center. So you do need to be either a global admin or a Teams admin to enable. I'm going to go ahead, go into the Teams Admin Center, admin.teams.microsoft.com, and I need to go into my permission policy. I'm going to go into, I have different curated experiences in my tenant, which is why you see these different policies. So let me go into the global one. And if you already have Microsoft apps, allow all apps, that's where Viva Connections lives. So it's really important to note, we're no longer in the third-party app, which was rolled out back in March, that you had to create. It was a third-party app. It's now a first-party app. So why don't I first go to Manage Apps so you can see Viva Connections. I'll go ahead and type it. And you can see you've got Insights, Learning, and here's the Connections one. Important enough to note that when you are ready, go ahead and click on Allowed. This will let everybody go to the Teams store and see it if you don't want to pin it to your side rail. However, with the setup policy, I'll show you how you can do that. So this just shows you some information. Also shows you if there's any permission, any settings, let that load. So really not much to do here. However, what I think got also confusing, and maybe it was just me, mind you, but Viva Connections is the name of your branded app, your company branded app. You can now go ahead and rename it. There isn't a reason you couldn't use the name Viva Connections, but a lot like back in the day, people wanted a different name than SharePoint for their intranet. You may want to just brand that. So how you do that is actually in the Manage Apps, in Actions, and Customize. So this is where you would say My Intranet or Benefits or the name of your company. I'm going to keep it here at Viva Connections for now. This is where you give it a description. Any of your privacy URLs or website or terms of use URLs, you can go ahead and add that in here. That displays in the Teams App Store. When you search on Viva Connections, you'll see that type of information. And now, importantly, the icon. If you want to change it and use your company branded icon, this is where you would do it. And then, of course, you can add an outline to that, and then any color coding. So that's all that's involved in just rebranding Viva Connections to create it for your particular environment. All right, like I said, permission policy, everyone needs to have access. And then now let's go into the setup policy. In the setup policy, this is where you can install it for everyone, so nobody needs to install anything. This is also where you can pin it to wherever you want to have it pinned. So the experience is, I always like to say, put it at the top, side rail, and then when you're in the mobile experience, it'll be at the bottom left, just to make it super simple for everyone. So let's go ahead and look at it. And this is my global org-wide rollout one. So I install it here. So by doing this, that means that when the person clicks on it, they don't have to hit install. It's kind of like an admin way of making your end users really like you, even though they won't even know you did it. But if you have install, think of 1,000 people having to install this. Probably wouldn't be great. So I can go ahead, I can click on it. It's grayed out because I have already installed it here. And then I want to pin it. So I want to make sure that it's as relevant for everyone as possible. So right here, you add the app by just looking for it. And you see that's already grayed out. But if I were to say add insights, just to show you what this would look like, you can move it up by clicking on it and go ahead and just say move up and move it up through the ranks. And now Viva Insights will be at the top. I don't really want Viva Insights there, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove. But as you see, Viva Connections is there. I just did this probably a couple hours ago. I like to say anything that you're doing when it comes to permission policy or setup policy or even enabling the home site, let it bake. Give it the old 24 hours, come back to it, and then you will see the changes. So that's all I have to do with scripts in the back end running to say, oh, is that new? Okay, let me update this. And they all are on different timer jobs. All right, now let's go ahead. I did everything I possibly could. I created my SharePoint lookbook. I made it to be my home site. I enabled navigation. I created my dashboard. I set my permission policy to make sure everyone has access to it through the first-party apps of Microsoft. I installed it for everyone. I could customize it in the Manage Apps section, but I pinned it more importantly, so everybody will see it front and center. We're going to do this huge new launch. We're going to communicate out. But you can also, if you're thinking of, I don't want to do that right away. I do want to have it pinned, but for a certain group, you can do that for in your policy here. So maybe you have a deployment team. You want to first test it out. You can make Viva Connections just a part of that group first. And then when you're ready to deploy, move that app over into the global setup policy. All right, let's take a look. This is what it looks like inside of Teams. This is now bringing my intranet or SharePoint custom branded communication site inside of Teams. And like I said, you can search for it in the Teams App Store. So let me go over to the App Store. That's where you're going to see your privacy URLs and everything. Go ahead and say Viva and Viva Connections. I can open it from here, but this is where those links are that I had shown you that you can create in the Manage Apps section. But I can go ahead and open it. And soon the Viva connections will be pinned. I bet if I refreshed, it might be there. But anyway, this is what it looks like. This is the Teams experience. This is where when I click on it, because I enabled the global navigation, you see I have now my internet resources, my global navigation here. So I can get to things that I want to get to. I see my sites that I follow or that I frequent. I see my news that is not displaying, but it's there. And I also see the dashboard that I added. So the dashboard page I added as a web part inside of SharePoint, I can now see inside of Teams. And what's great about doing this is that no matter what page I'm on, I can click on it and I go directly out to that page. And if I wanted to quickly share, I think you had seen that in that screenshot, I could go ahead, copy the link, or I can even just go back out to my SharePoint site. So from there, are there any questions? We are close to time, but that is all the steps. And I'll go ahead and while you guys are thinking of questions, I'm going to show you the rest of my slides and make sure that you get the resources of the step-by-step, and then we'll go through some of the FAQ we're seeing out there. I'll go ahead and pause. All pretty straightforward and easy, right, Don?
Yep, I'm going to start doing it tomorrow.
Yeah, it is so simple. It honestly, if the lookbook, it was there. I would have been able to show you. Now the app policies, that's the thing that might catch you with the 24 hours until you can get to actually see it in Teams. But I'm going to walk you through, this is what it was in the past, but put a big cross over that because no longer do you need to make it a custom line of business app. This is kind of that transition. This I had to figure out. I could not find documentation on this because I did deploy the line of business app and I wanted to use the first party app. I did not realize they were two separate things. I thought maybe I just click on some toggle switches and my line of business app would work. You actually need to, if you already deployed your line of business app, which I don't think anybody said they did on the call, you do need to actually remove that permissions and remove it from the setup policy and then deploy the other one. So that would be something you'd want to do like on a Friday night so you don't disrupt the users. And then this is deploy without PowerShell. This is all the step-by-step, setting up your SharePoint site, enabling your global navigation, and any custom navigation links you want to create. You don't have to, but you could create your dashboard and add those cards. You can enable it now for Teams desktop and mobile. So in case you're blocking the capability to get to Teams, you might want to think about how you could enable that for employees to actually start getting to their internet through Teams, through this app. And then manage and pin that. Of course, rebrand that in the Manage Apps section. And then get your content ready for your news feed. That could be an entire another topic here on the call focused on SharePoint News and Yammer and how that feed web part works and how to create a cycle of communication out to your end users. And then, of course, now your site is in Teams. So those are all the steps. A few things more. Viva connection images that are needed. I could not find this either, so I created all this documentation because I didn't know, okay, yep, you first start, you need a logo because that's going to be listed inside of the site itself. You need an icon because that's going to be in your global navigation. And then you need your global navigation logo. So there's multiple reasons why you'd want to work with your marketing team to get that right imagery. This is an adaptive card, the architecture. I didn't want to get too far in, but just to show you, there are 3 layers. You have the mobile responsive piece for the adaptive card. You also then have the SharePoint framework. That's really that orchestration between everything. And it's all utilizing the Graph API. So here are some of the resources. So as I kind of think through the support model, if you're not able to do different things, you will get access to these slides. A lot of the times, what you'll find is it does take 24 to 48 hours for things that come from SharePoint, or maybe even the home site being enabled. That might take that amount of time, as I've talked to. And then we've got, like, can any site be pinned as default landing page? Yep, all you need is a modern SharePoint communication site. No classic sites are really allowed. And do you need your home site app for global navigation to show up in Teams? I think that definitely gives you better navigation or end user experience in case they want to go somewhere else on that global navigation. So yeah, you do need to enable that. What happens if you don't configure it? Yeah, the user will still be able to access the recommended sites and news, so it doesn't go away, just that section will not be displayed. What's the difference between using the home site app and adding the home page as a tab? It really is more around where you want your entry point for everyone in your organization to get into your intranet. So yes, it is possible. However, it's not going to give you the best experience. How many dashboards can you have? Right now, there is a limit of 1 dashboard per organization, but what you really need to know is that you can create 25 Azure Active Directory security groups. So you know what that means? Kind of like 25 dashboards. So just thinking, keep that in mind. Yes, we only have 1. However, you can certainly have different views into it based on your audiences. Is there any difference in desktop experience for a line of business app versus a first party app? There's no difference in the desktop version. However, with the line of business app, you actually don't get the mobile experience. So that's really important to get out of the old app and into the new. This one just talks about feed and how often is the feed content refreshed. It is refreshed on boot, or you can manually push. Last but not least, what is the roadmap saying for Viva Connections? We did go out with desktop and mobile, but some new things that are going to be coming is around dynamic language, additional content sources for the feed. So if you have another location that you have content, we would go ahead and grab that for communicating back to your end users. Multiple instances per tenant, that'll be kind of interesting. And then more interactivity. I think the dashboard place is really going to see a ton of development in the next year. So if you're not on some of the developer calls for PNP and are interested in that, please let us know. I join one, I think it's weekly, and I learn about all the things that they're doing inside of Viva Connections and extending it out through adaptive cards and with the new SharePoint framework and really that kind of custom development that you might need. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop there and just say, thank you for listening, and I hope you learned a lot. I hope you got, for you a good guide on how to quickly deploy. And if anything, you can just deploy to your test team, and from there, kind of get a feel for what that experience will be.
Perfect. And there was a couple of questions, and I try to answer one of them. So Jake was asking about licensing, and thanks, Luke, for dropping in that link to the Viva licensing. It is dependent upon which top part of Viva you're talking about. So there are some free pillars and capabilities in there, but there are some licensing pieces. So please take a look at that link that Luke threw in there. And then Charles asked a question: if anyone links to an external site from inside SharePoint, how does that work in this context? I think it still works just normal, like you would normally have, even if you have a regular link in Teams. If you have the Teams app, it should just go out either. Well, actually, that's a good question. Would it stay in Teams or would it go to your browser?
That's right. You know what? I'm going to bring back my screen share because I think I said that I was going to show you what does the dashboard experience look like inside of the page, and just quickly show you what that experience is. So I added Yammer. So when I click on that, it goes out to Yammer. That's just a link. So if you had another web page, or maybe you want, everybody to go to Amazon or Best Buy or whatever the case, a link is a link is a link, so you can add that. I also showed the stock update. When you click on it, you can have different actions with your adaptive cards. One of them is you can go to a Teams app, or you can go out to something, a site, a link, or have a view that comes out. So I had it created where it's just a pop-up. So great question. You can almost think of this, the dashboard, as almost creating your own navigation. So if you kind of want to, have people stay in context, or go out to another SharePoint site, or start a training, you can even have stream videos in here. So lots of versatility. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Feel free if there's any other questions. I'll go ahead and get up our other deck and finish out and get everybody out of here. Perfect, Don. All right, thank you. We've got the survey link out there. We use that survey. We actually get together for an hour after every single user group meeting, and we discuss your feedback, topics that you want to learn more about. Again, if you're interested in speaking, sponsoring, or have any other feedback, we love to hear it. We want this to be relevant. We want to bring you, honestly, the best experts. So like if you are working on SharePoint subsites, and now we just announced subsites might be going away. Hey, let's get you somebody who is out there in the product group that might be able to talk to that. And why did that decision, come to fruition? And what does that mean for the next, future of SharePoint or future of Teams? So, any topics you guys are working on or thinking about, please add them to the survey. I'll go ahead and get that link up there too. So who, after learning about Viva Connections, are considering playing around and deploying it?
Looks like Kendra is.
All right.
Sheila. Dana.
Fantastic.
Jason mentioned they are not able to because of some of the cost spend on it. So that is something that, organizations do need to look at, but also understand, Jason, and maybe this is out of your control, but remember they're different pillars, right? So you can then choose to not deploy all of Viva or part of Viva, right? So if it makes sense just to do the connect part, then, and it works within the realm of what you're trying to do within your organization, maybe that's the way to start, right?
Yeah, and I'll bring up pricing. I think it's important. We don't talk a lot about pricing in the user group, but we do have an announcement that there was for all of the modules, it's $9 per user per month. But what you already have included with Office 365 today, if you're licensed for SharePoint, guess what? You already own Viva Connections. Yep. So everything I showed you, it's just about toggle switches at that point. Viva Learning, I did say you are getting access to some of the modules for LinkedIn, but all of MS Learn and the M365 training libraries. And then for Viva Insights, if you already are, I think, a E3 customer, you already get the personal insights. So you know how you could easily check? Go into Teams, go into the App Store, and look up Viva. And you should see Viva Learning and Viva Insights. Topics is a separate one that actually has to be deployed, like I said, in order to curate and get the content, getting it all scanned by the AI, and then, not until it actually gets published will you see the topics.
There was one more question.
Yeah.
Mikey was asking any word of not needing the global admin for creation.
Is that creation of SharePoint Lookbook, or you need to be a SharePoint admin to enable a home site You need to be a global admin, I believe, to be deploy a SharePoint lookbook, because you're connecting to the tenant, so you're giving it permission
I love that.
for that 5 minutes to connect and then deploy. And you do need to be a Teams admin for the permission policies and the setup policies, and to manage and rebrand Viva Connections in the Manage Apps section.
I see you're off mute, Mike. Do you any specifics?
Yeah, it was the lookbook, and because those that are responsible for content, they may want to look at those different options.
Yeah, I've seen that before, Mikey. And what ended up happening is that being an admin, I ended up creating some sample sites for them to play around with, but not the end one. So my last organization where I was the product manager, we literally had like 4 or 5 different lookbooks that we just went out there, gave them, access to it, had them play, right? And then we deleted them so that they didn't continue out there, because we had a different naming convention and things like that. So I think utilizing it that way, it's just, there's a lot of overhead that has to go in with the lookbook to be able to connect in. And I don't see that as being something that they're going to eventually let end users just do.
Yeah. But there's far between end user and global admin, right? Another role that would allow you
that could be able to do something like that. That's I haven't heard anything about that on the roadmap. Michelle?
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. No. Yep.
Okay, how are we doing? Hopefully everybody's getting the survey in. It's getting slower, so I just want to make sure everybody's getting things in. We have around 36 people now.
Well, and I can just review in case you weren't here in the beginning. We do have our February and March speakers already lined up. So if you're interested in robotic process automation, as well as Microsoft Shifts, come to the February 14th one. Ashwin and our very own Don will be showcasing that. And then March, we kind of have our Power Platform. We haven't really done a full Power Platform one, but it's kind of Teams integrated. So April and Heather will be showcasing their presentations there. So we definitely are going to cover a lot of what really occurs inside of Power Platform, but how it's integrated inside of Teams. So if you're interested in that, please join. All right, so for those of you who have not attended before, this survey is something that we do every month. And then when you finish it, we go ahead, pick a couple winners, and go ahead and provide you 2 different gift cards for $100 to Amazon. Just our way of thanking you for joining and for participating and giving us good feedback. Hey, Shari, are you still on the call? I think she is. All right, Doug, how many people do we have?
I am still here, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to just ask you if you had deployed Viva Connections yourself yet.
No, haven't. The organizations that I work with are looking at it, but it does come down to pricing,
Well, Viva Connections, that's free with your SharePoint licensing or any of the E3 licensing. Is that what they don't have?
Well, they're looking at it for the learning piece of it.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's their primary driver is the learning piece. Okay. So hopefully we, because that's what I do.
Right.
My focus is learning. So that we'll hopefully start doing more this year. Some people, they haven't done their budgets yet. And so they're looking at implementing budgets this year. So hopefully we'll start seeing some more of that.
Yeah, and I'll show in my demo tenant, just while we're waiting for everybody to finish their survey, I see Viva here. I'm going to just go out to the more apps, because you'll know if you have access to anything by just selecting or typing in Viva. So I have Viva Insights and I have Viva Learning. Connections you have to deploy, and of course topics you'd have to deploy as well. So just a little overview here. You do get, if you have the right licensing, which I think is E3, and if you don't know what licensing you have, that's one way to tell, is if you can actually see it. But this is the insights. This is where I can do, it tells me actions I need to do for the day. I can protect time. So that's kind of nice. I can book my time. It said I had an open hour or 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and book that, and hopefully people will know I'm trying to focus on a project or whatever. I have used Headspace. That's where you can get, a virtual commute, if you will, meaning that it can help you wind down through the day because I'm still working from home. I can also send praise. And then you've got a couple other tabs here for staying connected, how you can continue to stay connected to everyone, and then how you can protect your time. Look like that's taking a second to load.
I think that's
protect
for the wellness. We all need a little break. I know I took the last week off of the year, and I'm just like, nope, don't wanna. Yeah. And I didn't. And I think we all need that. So even on a day-to-day basis, maybe I wouldn't get to where I needed a whole week if I did it more often.
Yeah, I love the booking time. And then the Viva Learning, if you are licensed, you should see this in there. Again, going back to, it's connected to MS Learn already. So here I can see, what do I want to learn about? I could type that in. I do have some saved things, and I can browse course by, the type, or I can actually go into my provider. The only provider I'm going to see is because I don't have